Over 1 year ago, I started my beef with Disney's upcoming Snow White remake. That video can be summarized by 2 main points. Number 1, Rachel Zegler is a self-proclaimed narcissist who hates the character of Snow White. And number 2, Disney is shooting themselves in the foot by changing the fundamentals of Snow White's story for stupid reasons. If those sound crazy, I highly recommend checking out the full original video that I made. You can find it on screen now or by following the link at the top of the description. But here are just a few clips from Rachel Zegler to give you a taste of what we're dealing with here.
The reality is that the cartoon was made 85 years ago, and therefore it's extremely dated when it comes to the ideas of women being in roles of power. I just mean that it's no longer 1937, and we absolutely wrote a Snow White that is
not going to be saved by the prince.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. I'm a narcissist.
I was planning to talk about this film again, specifically after it releases on March 21st, 2025. I just really can't wait to see the box office results and audience reactions. But there are more details that I uncovered, and I felt like we needed a middle act to this story. The first video was just the beginning. It mostly focused around Disney's missteps and Rachel Zegler hurting her own film. The second video is the in-between, where we'll discuss more details that hurt the movie, and I'll give you my predictions for what I think will happen upon the film's release. And in March, we'll have the finale, finally seeing how everything ends. After that, I can finally rest and watch the sunrise on a grateful universe. But before we can get there, we have some more things to discuss, so let's just get started. Topic number 1. D23 Brazil. Just a couple of weeks ago, Disney held an event in Brazil called D23. It's basically where Disney's specific studios talk about their upcoming projects to investors and news outlets. This included upcoming animated films like Toy Story 5 or Zootopia 2. They also discussed Star Wars, Avatar, Marvel, and even the upcoming attractions arriving at the Disney parks. And of course, they talked about upcoming live-action films, which included them showing a new trailer for Snow White. At the time of this recording, the trailer is exclusive to D23 and has not been released to the public yet, but if that's changed, I'll put something on screen now. Since this trailer was shown at an event, you can find plenty of details about the trailer online. Comicbookmovie.com wrote an article talking about the movie. A large chunk of it is giving details about the content of the trailer itself, but that part of the article doesn't really give us anything interesting. However, there are 2 other things from the article that I want to highlight. First, one of the paragraphs of the article states, quote, "This isn't exactly one of the Mouse House's most anticipated remakes, not that many of them are, and this is partially due to the changes made to the original story, as well as the first official image from the movie that featured Snow White and the 7 CGI people." For anyone confused at the latter part of that quote, Disney released an image from the film showing us that the 7 dwarves seem to be done using CGI rather than real actors. This was furthered when we saw a sequence from the film showcasing the "Whistle While You Work" song, which allowed us even more insight to their approach to the dwarves. And overall, this has not been received very well. But the fact that an online site that reports on film news is highlighting these things was surprising. I would not have expected them to mention controversy like this when covering the details of a new trailer. The second interesting part of the article that I wanted to highlight is what immediately follows. Reportedly, Rachel Zegler was specifically asked about the backlash in regards to the CGI dwarves, and this is what her response was. "This is an iconic thing that people really care about. I don't want to mess this up for anybody, including myself. It's a bit different story-wise. We were able to do Whistle While You Work, which made me really happy and excited. I was really nervous more about the technical element. That first look image went out, and there's lots of CGI in the film." She continues saying most of that day was spent singing to nothing. There was a lot of puppetry and CGI in post. It was really intense. If your main actress is making a statement on the controversy surrounding CGI dwarves when there's other backlash that's even more severe, you just know that things are not going well. But the thing is, Rachel will never talk about the backlash to the story changes, and honestly, it's because she can't. Across multiple interviews, she has stated that the original story is dated. She has called it weird. She has clearly stated that this story is not the same, but she's emphasized that that is a good thing. They have fully committed to this, and there is nothing they can do or say to get out of it. And to be honest, I don't even think that they want to. I think if you asked Rachel Zegler what she thought of the new story, she'd probably praise it. And we'll just have to wait and see how well that works out for them when the movie comes out. Topic number 2. Greta Gerwig. This point might sound a little controversial at first, but I really need you to hear me out. Greta Gerwig is a perfectly fine writer, and I'm not here to critique her ability to write a movie. However, she is absolutely not the correct choice for writing a remake of the original Snow White. The reason for this is because of everything that we've heard from Rachel Zegler in interviews, saying that the original is extremely dated, calling it weird, and trashing on the messages that it sends to women. I think I explained this well in my previous video. Ultimately, I think this remake is already doomed to fail. I mean, they kinda secured that when they decided to not even make it a remake, but then on top of that, you have your main actress trashing on the original story and talking about how outdated it is. I would have no issue if they decided to create an original story about a girl who dreams about becoming a leader and sees that come to fruition, rises in power and overcomes an evil queen, whatever. But why are we doing this to Snow White? There is nothing wrong with the story or with girls who dream of true love. And I stand by my opinion that it's actually degrading to many women to call the original movie dated and say that it needs reworked. What if that ends up discouraging someone from their dreams rather than empowering them? The point is that Disney is changing the story of Snow White, and when you combine this change with the writing of Greta Gerwig, I truly think you will ruin the story entirely. But here's the thing, if Disney came to Greta and asked her to write a completely original Disney princess movie, I would have zero issues. It's the fact that they are trashing on the established story and claiming that it is outdated. It's the fact that they are trashing on all of the people who resonated with Snow White's journey of finding true love. Calling that dated is alienating the exact audience that Disney wants to watch this film. And when this movie bombs at the box office, they will have nobody to blame but themselves. Topic number 3. Rachel Zegler got political. To be totally honest, I had this video planned well before anything happened with the election. It was never my intention to bring politics into this video. Most of this video has been scripted for a number of weeks now. I'm actually shoehorning this in after some of it was already edited. So this video would have released and operated fine without me talking about this. I just felt like in order to properly represent the public discourse and all of the controversy, it felt necessary to include this topic. Rachel Zegler posted on an Instagram story following the results of the election. If you care to read the whole thing, feel free to pause the video and do so. The only part that really matters for this discussion is at the very end, when she says, quote, "May Trump supporters and Trump voters and Trump himself never know peace," end quote. If it isn't obvious to say, the country is split about 50-50 with Republicans and Democrats. At least that's what it looks like if you look at the pool of Americans who voted in the presidential election. Regardless of where you land politically, if you make a statement about either political party or the voters within that party, you're sending a message to half of the country. Tens of millions of people. In this case, Rachel is telling half of the country that she hopes they never know peace. That's already a pretty harsh thing to say, but it's even worse when you put it in the context of this election. She is literally saying that she hopes over 76 million Americans never know peace. And I don't care where you lean politically, this is a detrimental thing to say. You'll be shocked to find out that this has not been received very well online. And some people were even calling for her to be fired by Disney. Disney as a company has a history of firing actors for different controversial or political reasons. Gina Carano was fired by Disney around the time of COVID-19 and the 2020 presidential election for stating what was considered to be controversial political opinions. I only bring her up because some people on the internet are claiming that what Rachel is saying is just as bad, if not worse. So if they can fire Gina Carano for controversial statements, they can fire Rachel as well. Now let's be honest, Disney is not going to fire Rachel Zegler. And I don't really think that they should. No matter your political belief or what you think about her specific statement, she's expressing her freedom of speech. She's allowed to say what she wants, and she can have whatever opinion that she wants about the election. In my opinion, the same standard should have been applied to Gina Carano's situation as well, but we're not really here to discuss that. Just like Rachel has the freedom of speech to literally bash half of the country, those millions of people also have the freedom to turn around, give her the finger, and not watch any of the movies that she's in. The same freedoms that allow Rachel to speak her mind also allow anybody else to disagree with her. So while it's impossible to quantify because we're just adding this onto the pile of controversial things surrounding this film, I do think that this will have an impact. But as things keep stacking, I just get more and more curious on how things are going to turn out. So what does all of this mean? What can we expect to happen upon the film's release? Make sure you take this with a grain of salt, as this is just my opinion, somewhat based on data and somewhat based on pure gut feeling. If you disagree, feel free to comment below and let me know where I got it all wrong, but here are the 4 things that I am predicting for this movie's release. Prediction number 1. The movie underperforms at the box office. What do I actually mean by this? I think the movie will have a decent opening weekend. Rachel Zegler has some decent star power and will definitely draw some crowds to check out the film. Disney also has good pull in general, although they've experienced many theatrical flops in these last few years. So I think we will see a decent opening weekend followed by a huge decline in the following weeks. Box office wise, the movie's biggest competition will be the Minecraft movie, which doesn't open until 2 weeks after Snow White. Especially by that time, I predict Snow White will have dropped significantly and be completely buried as April and May continue with other big releases. Prediction number 2. Critic reviews will be mixed. Admittedly, I think this movie will receive mixed reviews from critics. It is not their job to take a step back and judge this remake based on the original source material. Most critics will judge the movie based on its own merit. And for that reason, I don't see it being overwhelmingly negative. My prediction is that the Rotten Tomatoes score will land somewhere between 50 and 70%. The movie will probably have quite a bit to offer when it comes to production, performances, and entertainment overall. So even if I think they've ruined the story is not the only thing that critics will focus on. Prediction number 3. The audience reviews will be... It's complicated. Originally, I was going to make the prediction that audiences would be overwhelmingly negative on the film. But as I looked through past examples and gave more thought to this, I came to a realization. People who already have a negative view of this movie aren't going to go and watch it. This kind of ties into my first prediction. One of the reasons why the movie will not perform well at the box office is because there's already a large group of people who do not care about the film. In a weird way, someone not going to a movie because they already hate it is essentially a negative review, but that won't be reflected on any movie rating app such as Letterboxd. I just truly think there's a large group of what would be negative reviews who don't even care enough to watch it and give it that negative review. Thus, I think the audience will be generally positive, with some negative outliers. I think we'll end up seeing something similar to the scores that we got for The Little Mermaid. Prediction number 4. I will hate it. I don't really feel like I need to explain this. I fall into the camp of people who would rather just not watch the movie. But in order to fulfill my contractual obligation to the benjimovies YouTube channel, I must endure. Even though I predict that I will hate it, I promise to be honest about my thoughts. I will be truthful about the things that I like or don't like within the movie. I just don't really see them winning me over, considering this remake is taking the original and just dunking on it. So yeah, put it simply, I'm expecting to hate this thing. Ultimately, Disney's Snow White is doomed to fail. And if we are being 100% honest, they will be completely to blame. They decided to change the original story. They decided to hire actors that would trash on the movie ahead of its release. They decided to follow their own agenda and not take their own audience into account. And I just really do not see it playing out any other way. Please make sure that you're subscribed so that you're here when this saga continues, and also make sure to leave a comment giving your stance on the matter. Thank you all so much for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next video, which is swinging your way on December 7th.